raw vegan fruitarian dies of malnutrition. Why? There's people dying when they are eating the perfect diet. How to avoid the pitfalls in a frugivore, a fruitarian, a raw vegan, a vegan diet. What is the nutrition mistakes that people make to suffer diseases while they are eating healthy? Stay there until the end to learn my experience as a frugivore for 20 years. After almost 20 years eating a raw food, plant-based diet, studying nutrition in university, scientific articles, writing 10 books on the subject, I believe I can help you to avoid these pitfalls with several rules to apply in your daily diet so you can be better nourished, more healthy, and to attain more longevity and to avoid diseases while eating healthy. Let's understand about Steve Jobs, for example. People talk a lot about his fruitarian diet. So why are these people passing away if they are eating healthy? Hi, I'm Dr. Eduardo Corassa, a clinical nutritionist from Brazil that has saved his own life through lifestyle medicine called natural hygiene. And also, I'm happy to announce that 4 of my 10 books published in Portuguese are now translated to English and available on ebook and print on demand. So the hygienic fasting, nature's surgery, the anti-cancer diets, the lifestyle that fights cancer, the Eden's diets, the guide to raw frugivorism, the original diets, and natural delicacies, cooking without a stove are the perfect start for your new health journey, for a healthier, better, more longevity version of you. And unfortunately, because I teach lifestyle medicine, the podcast doesn't have any sponsors because there's no money in producing health. There's money in supplements, there's money in therapies, surgeries, treatments, but teaching lifestyle medicine, there is no company wanting to sponsor us. So I ask for your help for free. You can comment below, share the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button for notification. You help YouTube to deliver more our content to you and to other people. And I also provide consultations online and in private sessions. There is the Raw Food Detox Retreats here January and July in Rio de Janeiro. 4 blocks from a beautiful beach, a tennis court on the yard, 350 rare fruit trees, and the best education on lifestyle medicine in the world, in my humble, if I dare to say. And also 6 online courses, but they're still in Portuguese. So if you want to help the work grow, to help other people, and also help yourself, I highly suggest you to go in the description below for our website or for our WhatsApp. I will ask our editor to put here the recipes from the retreat. Besides the culinary, there's the practical application and also the scientific lectures. I hope you like the video. Compared to people eating junk food and living even more than them. Hi, I'm Dr. Corassa, clinical nutritionist from Brazil that have saved his own life by a natural hygiene lifestyle. That means a raw frugivore diet, sleep, sunshine, exercise, paying attention to healthy living. Yes, pretty different than most people do nowadays. I exercise intensely every day, I get sunshine every day, I sleep early and have dinner early, I eat a raw food, plant-based diet. There's a lot to learn if you want to be in perfect health. And there's a lot of mistakes that people make thinking they're eating healthy, but they're not. As you can see, there were recently a lot of fruitarians, a lot of frugivores, a lot of fruitarians dying. We can actually start by the story of Steve Jobs. I will do a story, I will do actually a video on him afterwards, just on his case. But what we have to understand about Steve Jobs is that when he was really young, he discovered Arnold Ehret, that was actually somebody that was not a health professional, but somebody that saved his own life by eating a frugivore diet and practicing fasting. Arnold Ehret, he discovered natural hygiene, he applied the concepts and saved his own life and taught in his own books, but without the scientific knowledge to avoid small mistakes. He was quite a visionary for his time, but still, he made a few mistakes, and Jobs admired his work, tried a fruitarian diet for a year, and in his late 50s, he actually died of cancer. So a lot of people say, oh, Steve Jobs ate a lot of fruit and he died. Or he was vegan and he died of cancer. So that is not like being vegan or plant-based or fruitarian is not the answer. First of all, you have to consider the whole lifespan. So it's not what a person does for 1 year or 2 years, but what the person does for his whole life. That counts more than anything else. Because Steve Jobs for sure ate only fruit for 1 year. First of all, what natural hygiene preaches and teaches is that we are not fruitarians, we are frugivores. So we have to include fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, even algae you can include, even mushrooms, even legumes. We don't eat just fruit. So that was Steve Jobs' first mistake. Second is that his biography suggests that he actually had a lot of contamination of heavy metals during his early years with Apple. Before becoming a millionaire, he was always dealing with these chips, with these hardwares, with these computer hardwares, but without any protection. So he got contaminated with a lot of heavy metals, and we know that can actually cause cancer. For sure, phytonutrients in plants can actually help to detoxify and chelate these heavy metals, so reduce the health impact that they have on us. But still, they're still toxic and they still cause harm, even though you can be a fruitarian. So first of all, he was not a fruitarian for his whole life, just 1 year. He didn't eat the perfect diet because only fruits is not the ideal diet, that's for sure. And third, he was not paying attention to all other natural hygiene lifestyle factors. So that we are going to talk about it right now. So recently, I saw a lot of fruitarians actually dying. And you can ask like, why? Why natural hygienists are not living to 100 years of age if they're living naturally? So Dave Klein was a long-term fruitarian that died recently. This Mungo Woodzak was a fruitarian that just died a few days ago of heart disease. And there was Dr. Robert Lockhart that died because of dry fasting. And there was Dr. Robert Lockhart, and there was recently Zana Darts, a digital influencer that also died. So a lot of people, and you can see a lot of cases with babies dying of malnutrition because their parents were trying to make them drink soy milk or impose a raw vegan diet. Yes, for sure, there's people dying eating this way. But you have to pay attention that in the whole world, there's hundreds, not millions, even millions dying every day from diseases that are caused by excess of nutrients. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes. People are eating too much calories, too much junk food, too much fat, too much protein, and not enough phytonutrients. So you have to understand that nutrition, you have to have balance. There is an equilibrium between nutrients. So some people go to the extreme of dying of low on certain nutrients. So most people in the world die of excess calories and malnutrition in another way. Because first of all, you have to understand that malnutrition is not just a lack of nutrients, but an excess of nutrients is also malnutrition. And excess protein, like people eat nowadays, it's actually in scientific terms correlated with cancer, heart disease, diabetes. I will actually ask Murilo, our video editor, to put a link, the research paper from Walter Longo showing that people that eat high protein diets actually live a shorter life and a sicker life, increases morbidity and mortality as we talk in science. That means from all causes. That means people suffer more diseases and die from more diseases. Any kind of diseases, all cause morbidity and mortality, as we say in epidemiology, the science that study populations. There's a lot of details to understand about health. First of all, diet is not the end all and be all in terms of health. So these people may be trying to eat a perfect diet, as they suggest, but what about sleep, exercise, sunshine, avoiding toxins, avoid environmental toxins, avoiding eating late at night? We do a lot of things nowadays that is not by any means natural. So diet is just a small part of health. What we do throughout our lives accumulate for the sickness or for healthy. So if you had a really healthy lifestyle for 20 years, maybe 5 years of eating junk food and being obese, sedentary, and sleeping late at night, will not have as much impact as somebody that grew up on an unhealthy lifestyle like I did. For example, my dad, I always use him for example. I ask Murilo to put pictures of us here. He was really big bones and a strong guy because he was an Italian immigrant from the Second World War. So they came to Brazil to immigrate and they were really poor, and they live up based on planting their own food. So they didn't have money, they didn't have even electricity. So he grew up and he drank his mother's milk until he was 6 years of age. He never saw junk food. He was eating fruits, vegetables, and cooked food that they actually planted their own food and they farm it, they fished their own fish. He ate small amounts of animal protein, a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, and some tubers in the end of the day cooked. So because of his 20 years of almost perfect lifestyle living in nature, he was pretty healthy and strong. So when he was in his 60s, he was smoking, drinking, eating a lot of junk food, but he looked different. He was built different. He was stronger, faster, smarter, better coordination, and his immune system was impressive. Although he was maintaining a big belly fat, the visceral fat around his organs, that is the worst kind of fat, he was healthier than everybody else. It was quite impressive. That we call metabolic programming. I put the word out down here. Its organism is being actually programmed, metabolic, hormonal, epigenetic speaking, to function later in life. So the first years of life, the first 10 years, 20 years are the most important ones. If you had a good and healthy childhood, you will be a more healthy adult. So we don't know the details around all the health habits of these persons that died, and not just for the present, for their whole lives. Because, I was vegan for 5 years, and that doesn't tell me much. If you exercise, if you sleep early, if you have dinner early, if you are avoiding environmental toxins, there's a lot to talk about the whole time of life that this person has. But for sure, let's understand the main mistakes in terms of diet that most of these vegans or raw vegans make, and they end up going back in the vegan wagon and start eating a lot of fish and meat and even going carnivore. Yeah, there's actually Paul Saladino, for example. I saw a video of him the other day. He was famous for being the carnivore MD, and then he's now animal-based MD. But before that, he was actually a raw vegan, for I could see in the video. He was suggesting that he couldn't even get a date. That is quite funny because people make a lot of mistakes going to extremes without understanding the main parts in terms of nutrition and nutritional science. Xana Dart case. Robert Lockhart case, we have more details than the others. First of all, dry fasting, it's a no-go. I highly recommend you to read Hygienic Fasting Nature Surgery, my book on the subject. I have fasted 40 days, 39 days, 24 days, 23 days, 19 days, 15 days, a lot of 10-day fastings, a lot of 7-day fastings, a lot of 5 days, 3 days fasting. I have fasted a lot during these last 20 years. And I have studied a lot, not just the natural hygiene perspective and clinical experience, but the scientific literature. So I have come up with the book. I have actually published a lot of documentaries in my Portuguese channel on fasting. You can watch the videos. Probably pretty soon YouTube will be dubbing the videos so you can watch it as well. But I think I can talk about fasting, and even more in the shoulders of Dr. Herbert Shelton, the person who supervised more water fasting in his life than anyone else in the planet in the history of humankind. That means Herbert Shelton was the most experienced and most knowledgeable about fasting in the world, and he was against dry fasting. And I'm also against dry fasting because there is no evidence on dry fasting. The body needs water. All organisms on planet Earth live and depend and are highly dependent on water. So why you are going to exclude, why you are going to avoid water in your fasting when there's no science behind it, when there's no evidence, clinical evidence from hygienists who are the most knowledgeable and experienced health professionals in the planet throughout these last 200 years on the subject. You know, there's no fasting clinic that actually employs dry fasting. So dry fasting is dangerous, and you should be aware of these people. And probably Lockhart got into big trouble also because of dry fasting. But these people believe in fruitarianism, and they don't understand that anthropoid primates, the bonobos, the chimps, the gorillas, and the orangutans, yes, they all prefer fruits. They all love fruit. If you give a lot of fruit to them, they will prefer over vegetables. But our diet cannot be sustainable on only fruit diets. You have to understand that vegetables are low in calories and fruits are somewhat higher in calories, right? Compared to vegetables, not compared to other foods. When you eat a few leaves of lettuce, a few stalks of broccoli, you are actually ingesting like 1% of your diet in terms of calories from vegetables itself. So when people think of vegetables, they actually think of eating a little bit of vegetables and that it would be enough, but it's not enough. So there's a lot of things to understand in terms of nutrition, but the first mistake these people make when trying a fruitarian diet is living on fruits. You need variety, but not just fruit variety. You need vegetable variety. You need nuts and seeds variety. You need some variety in the other kingdoms as well. I, for example, endorse legumes. You don't need to eat them every day, but eating some fresh peas. I already harvest chickpeas here in my land, but you can also plant lentils, chickpeas, peas, even fresh soy, edamame. When it's green, it's tasty. Including some legumes can be something not just pleasurable, but to avoid any protein deficiency, to get a better equilibrium of micronutrients. You don't need a lot of them. You don't need to eat a lot of beans or legumes to be well nourished. And you probably don't even need them. But to have a better balance, instead of eating a lot of vegetables every day, including some legumes once in a while, maybe even every day in small portions, will guarantee you to not go into deficiency in maybe in some minerals, but primarily in protein. What do I recommend? A frugivore diet, a raw food frugivore diet that you must include sometimes mushrooms, nuts legumes. You must include most of the days nuts and seeds, and every day fruits and shoots, fruits and vegetables. But you have to understand that it's not any vegetable. It is the leafy vegetables that count. Because a lot of people think that carrots or beets count as vegetables, but they don't count as vegetables. They will be counting as fruits. If you take a look on the macronutrient profile, on the amino acid profile, you will understand that these foods will count as fruits in your diet. So you have to understand that at least I recommend for my patients a minimum of 500 grams of vegetables every day. Oh, Eduardo, that is too much, blah, blah, blah. For sure, it depends on the amount of nuts and seeds, maybe algae that you can include as well, on mushrooms, on legume consumption. But you have to understand that nutrition is a balance. And although fruit is the most perfect and tasty food when in its raw state, fruit cannot be the be-all and end-all in our diet because it isn't complete as we would like to think of. So these are the main mistakes. Besides talking about babies that we can talk about in another video, because babies will need B12 from their mother's breast, you need a higher amount of fat because they're still growing. There's a lot of details on maternal infant nutrition, but we're not going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about adult human nutrition. So that is the main mistake that people make in raw vegan diets. They think, okay, so I just have to eat fruit and be cute, as some fruitarians used to say 20 years ago when I started the diet. When I started the diet, a frugivore diet, following the steps, following the teachings of Dr. Douglas Graham almost 20 years ago, I saw some fruitarians also talking about it, and I actually even tried to stay on fruit just for a few days. I stay on only fruit for a few days, and I never felt complete. Vegetables always make me feel better and more mentally and physically stable. So I always recommend you to not avoid vegetables and to understand that a lot of people I saw back then, Marley and Freely, and I admire Freely's content, but they were always talking 30 bananas a day about avoiding fat, and that is not a good thing. We need the fat from avocados, nuts and seeds, and coconut and other fruits. We need a little bit of fat. It's not that much fat, but still, avoiding all fats, all raw vegan fats altogether is not a good thing. That's for sure. So you have to have an equilibrium, and I can help you out doing a nutritional food plan so you don't go into mistakes in terms of the nutrient deficiencies. Or you can also read the Eden's Diet, my book that is available on Amazon Print on Demand and Kindle. In the end, I have two menus, food menus for you to understand more how to feed yourself. And I also talk about B12, that is our next topic that people make mistakes. A lot of vegans think that they cannot go into malnutrition because they're eating a plant-based diet. So they feel a lot better in the first years eating plant-based, and they end up going low in certain specific nutrients that for sure can go low in a vegan diet, and in a few years they go into deficiency and they start suffering from a lot of symptoms and they don't know how to go around it. Some people drop out of the plant-based diet and go directly for a carnivore diet like Paul Saladino, for example, or some people keep suffering several symptoms through many years, or they actually go back to eating cooked food and animal products. So you have to understand that raw food diet is perfect when you apply it with perfection. And for sure, a vegan diet, if it's cooked food vegan or if it's raw food vegan, doesn't have B12 and can also go low on a few other specific nutrients. Science is still debating about B12, zinc, omega-3s like EPA and DHA, vitamin D, and iodine. So you can check these nutrients through a blood work, but you have to understand that B12 is the main one of them and can actually go low. And there's a lot of details. I will do another video on B12 just to teach you the details behind it and how to obtain it and how to check for the deficiencies and why we're not getting more naturally, if a vegan diet should be perfect, etc. But for sure, these people, long-term fruitarians, probably end up with deficiencies in several different micronutrients, like we just said. Several deficiencies of nutrients, not just B12 probably, but for sure, the main one to pay attention is B12. Radicalism is dangerous because for Zanadart, for example, or Robert Lockhart, if they were seeing symptoms through many months, why they didn't thought of changing a little bit their diet? You know, you have to understand that it can look like the perfect diet. You can be feeling a lot better because you're doing caloric restriction, you're doing protein restriction, so you're turning on autophagy and the repairing mechanism, the longevity genes. That means they were feeling a lot more healthy because they were into a dietary restriction, and that turns on the body defenses mechanisms, but still, they were not getting some nutrients. That's why they start feeling symptoms, and they didn't try anything different. And I think that is crazy. I don't think you need to eat animal products, but if you want to remain a vegan, you have to include supplements. If you're going low in these nutrients, you have to have a better balanced diet, not of only fruits. But for people who doesn't want to be a vegan, that was another mistake. People go back to eating a lot of animal products or a lot of cooked food, not understanding that the problem was not in cooked or raw. The problem is the difference in these small difference details in some nutrients when you avoid animal products for a long run, for the long term. So these people that go into deficiency go from somewhere from 5 to 10 years after being vegans. So the problem is not with raw foodism, but with a vegan diet. So you have two options. Or you have to supplement and have a better balance on your vegan diet as well. You should include, or in my perspective, and I actually, although I'm a plant-based nutritionist, I encourage some patients to eat small amounts of animal products when they are not managing their symptoms and their symptoms and their deficiencies. So there's a lot to talk, but don't be too radical that you end up damaging your health or maybe even killing yourself, dying of malnutrition because you don't realize that you should change your diets to adapt to your body's biological needs, to your body's nutritional needs. So that is my take on that. You know, these people died because they go into dry fasting, only fruit-based diets, only fruit diets, and do this in the long run because maybe for a year, for a month, your body still have nutritional reserves. That you have to understand that B12 can be stored in your body for 10 years. That's why these people go in the long run, end up going low in these nutrients and then end up having symptoms after 10 years. And I have a lot of patients that have been following a vegan diet for 7 years, for 10 years, that start developing problems with these nutrients. So you have to have a balance and understand that maybe even your vegan diet is not perfect. So I'm not recommending you to include animal products. But if your life depends on it, I think it would be better to eat an egg or have some milk, or even better, go find yourself a doctor on nutrition or medicine that understand the nutritional details and can help you out with your diets so you don't suffer or even die of malnutrition. So that, I think, it's radical. Dying of malnutrition instead of looking for help and trying to understand what are your mistakes, why you're eating such a good diet, you're feeling so good, but you're still having a lot of symptoms. People don't realize it. People don't realize that they can make small mistakes and that mistakes can even cost their lives. But also, you don't need to go all the extreme to a carnivore diet. You can take a look at blue zones. They have a really small intake of animal products and they live pretty well for far advanced lives. Although I love the plant-based view, although I love the concept of veganism, we have to be real that there are a lot of vegans going back into eating animal products because they're going not because they like to eat flesh, but because they go deficient, they go into malnutrition. So we have to teach people how to correct their mistakes into a vegan diet, or even tell them, unfortunately, to have small amounts of animal products like blue zones, so they don't actually harm themselves and die. Share the video with everybody that needs to understand this message, that maybe are trying just a fruit-based diet and are actually can in the long run suffer from malnutrition. For sure, I started a raw food, fruit-based diet almost 20 years ago, and I didn't have any experience with it. I didn't have any knowledge in nutrition. I just read the 80-10-10 and started in this path. And over the years, with a lot of scientific study, with a lot of clinical experience helping patients to achieve perfect health, I think I have a lot of knowledge to help people to avoid these pitfalls. I'm not suggesting you to not be vegan or anything, but yes, unfortunately, a vegan diet not done properly can harm you as well in the long run. For sure, in the short run, a whole food plant-based diet, you are going to feel amazing. But in the long run, you can go low in certain specific nutrients and actually start having symptoms. If you're having symptoms or know anybody that having symptoms, message me. The details are on the description. You can message me on WhatsApp or in my email and have my consultation, my professional knowledge and expertise to help you out to overcome these symptoms and achieve perfect health. So if you like the video and you like our work, please don't forget to share the video, comment below, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button for notification. And also, if you want my help as a clinical nutritionist, I can help you through consultation, online and in private sessions. My 4 published books, you can access them through the links below. And also, come for a retreat in Brazil here with us. And there's the online courses that will still be translated to English. And if you also want to help our work, you can become a member of the channel for a small donation every month. Click these videos to know more. And remember, health is produced by healthful living. Much frugal health. See you next time.